The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Kensington Palace as Catherine, the Princess of Wales, stood before an ornate mirror in her private dressing room. Her reflection showed a woman who had grown into her royal role with grace, yet today something felt different. Today marked exactly 26 years since Princess Diana's tragic death, and the weight of that anniversary hung heavy in the air throughout the palace. Catherine's lady-in-waiting, Margaret, had laid out several jewelry options for the day's official engagements. Among them sat a collection that always made Catherine's heart skip a beat: Princess Diana's personal jewelry, now part of the crown's collection. These pieces had been carefully preserved and occasionally worn by Catherine on special occasions, each one carrying the weight of history and the memory of the people's princess. As Catherine's fingers moved across the various necklaces and earrings, she paused at a particular piece that seemed to call out to her. It was Diana's sapphire and diamond choker, a stunning creation that had been one of the late princess's favorite pieces. The deep blue sapphires caught the morning light, creating tiny rainbows across the room. This wasn't just any piece of jewelry, it was a symbol of Diana's independence, her style, and her connection to the people. Margaret noticed Catherine's hesitation. "Your Royal Highness, perhaps the pearl set would be more appropriate for today's schedule," she suggested gently, knowing that Diana's jewelry always stirred deep emotions within the palace walls. Catherine picked up the choker, feeling its weight in her hands. The craftsmanship was exquisite, each sapphire perfectly cut and set among diamonds that sparkled like captured starlight. She remembered seeing photographs of Diana wearing this very piece at various royal functions, how it had complemented her elegant gown at a state dinner, how it had caught the camera's attention during a charity gala. "No, Margaret," Catherine said softly, her voice carrying a determination that surprised even herself. "Today feels right for this one." The decision wasn't made lightly. Catherine understood the significance of wearing Diana's jewelry. Each time she did, it sparked conversations, comparisons, and sometimes controversy. The British press would analyze every choice, every angle, every possible meaning behind her selection. But, today, something inside her felt drawn to honor Diana's memory in this very personal way. As Margaret fastened the choker around Catherine's neck, both women fell silent. The piece fit perfectly, as if it had been waiting all these years for this moment. Catherine touched the central sapphire gently, feeling an unexpected connection to the woman who had worn it before her, the woman who had paved the way for a different kind of royal approach. The irony wasn't lost on Catherine that she was preparing to wear Diana's jewelry while heading to events that Diana herself might have attended. The schedule included a visit to a children's hospital, exactly the kind of engagement that Diana had made her specialty. Diana had revolutionized royal charitable work, bringing a hands-on approach that broke traditional barriers between the monarchy and the people. Catherine studied herself in the mirror one final time. The choker transformed her entire appearance, adding an elegance that seemed to carry Diana's spirit. She could almost imagine Diana's approval, her warm smile, her encouragement to use the platform for good. The thought brought both comfort and a strange sense of responsibility. "The car is ready, Your Royal Highness," Margaret announced, checking her watch. Catherine nodded, taking one last look at her reflection. She didn't know it yet, but the simple choice to wear Diana's choker would set in motion a series of events that would reverberate through the palace halls and capture the attention of the entire royal family. As she made her way through the palace corridors, staff members couldn't help but notice the striking piece around her neck. Whispers followed in her wake, not malicious, but amazed. The resemblance to Diana in that moment was uncanny, not just in appearance but in the confidence and warmth that seemed to radiate from Catherine. The palace protocol officers had been briefed about Catherine's jewelry choice, as was standard procedure. Every public appearance required careful coordination, and Diana's jewelry always required special consideration. The pieces were not just accessories, they were historical artifacts that carried deep emotional significance for the royal family and the British public. Catherine's security team was already positioned at various points throughout her route to the waiting car. The day's schedule included 3 official engagements, each requiring different levels of security and public interaction. The children's hospital visit would be followed by a meeting with charity representatives and, then, an evening reception for international guests. As Catherine approached the main entrance, she could see the familiar sight of photographers already positioned outside the palace gates. They were always there, ready to capture any moment that might become tomorrow's front page. Today, they had no idea they were about to witness something that would dominate headlines for weeks to come. The morning air was crisp as Catherine stepped outside, and the autumn light immediately caught the sapphires in her choker. The photographers' cameras began clicking instantly, but Catherine maintained her composed smile, walking with the practiced grace that had become second nature over her years as a working royal. Her protection officer, James, opened the car door as Catherine approached. "Beautiful morning, Your Royal Highness," he commented, though his trained eyes were constantly scanning the surroundings for any potential security concerns. "Yes, it is," Catherine agreed, settling into the back seat of the official car. As the vehicle began to move, she touched the choker once more, feeling the smooth sapphires beneath her fingertips. Something told her this day would be different, though she couldn't have imagined just how different it would become. The car wound through London streets toward the children's hospital, passing crowds of people going about their daily lives. Some recognized the official vehicle and waved, while others were too busy with their own concerns to notice. Catherine always found these journeys peaceful, a moment to collect her thoughts before the public appearances began. Meanwhile, back at Buckingham Palace, King Charles was reviewing his own schedule for the day when his private secretary entered with the morning briefings. Among the routine updates was a mention of Catherine's planned engagements and her jewelry selection for the day. "The Princess of Wales will be wearing the Spencer family sapphire choker today, Your Majesty," the secretary noted in passing, referring to Diana's family name. Charles paused in his reading, his pen hovering over a document requiring his signature. The mention of that particular piece always stirred complex emotions within him. It wasn't just the jewelry itself, but everything it represented: his late wife's memory, their complicated relationship, and the ongoing presence of Diana's legacy within the royal family. "Did she now?" Charles murmured, his voice neutral but his expression thoughtful. He had always maintained that Diana's jewelry should be worn and enjoyed rather than locked away, but each appearance of these pieces brought back a flood of memories, both beautiful and painful. The morning continued with its usual rhythm of meetings and correspondence, but Charles found his thoughts drifting to Catherine and her choice to wear Diana's choker. He appreciated Catherine's respectful approach to Diana's memory, how she wore the pieces with dignity and understanding of their significance. Yet today, something felt different about this particular choice. As the day progressed, both Catherine and Charles continued with their separate schedules, neither knowing that by evening, their paths would cross in a way that would surprise everyone in the palace and create a moment that would be talked about for years to come. Catherine's first engagement at the Children's Hospital was proceeding beautifully. The staff and young patients were delighted by her visit, and the choker had indeed caught everyone's attention, adding an extra touch of elegance to an already meaningful occasion. The photographers captured every angle, every smile, every interaction, not knowing they were documenting the beginning of an extraordinary day. Back at the palace, preparations were underway for the evening reception, where both Catherine and Charles would be in attendance. The staff had no idea that a simple piece of jewelry was about to create one of the most emotionally charged moments in recent royal history. The children's hospital visit had exceeded all expectations. Catherine moved through the pediatric wards with natural ease, stopping at each bed to speak with young patients and their families. The sapphire choker caught the hospital lighting beautifully, creating moments of wonder for children who were delighted by the sparkling jewels. One little girl, barely 5 years old and recovering from surgery, reached out tentatively to touch the necklace. "It's so pretty," the child whispered, her eyes wide with amazement. Catherine knelt down to the child's level, bringing the choker closer so the little one could see the intricate details. "It belonged to a very special princess who loved children just like you," Catherine explained gently, her voice filled with warmth. The moment was captured by the official photographer, creating an image that would later become iconic. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the hospital's chief pediatrician, walked alongside Catherine throughout the visit. She had worked at the hospital for over 30 years and remembered Princess Diana's visits vividly. "Your Royal Highness, if I may say so, you remind me so much of Princess Diana today. She had that same gift of making each child feel like the most important person in the world." Catherine smiled at the comparison, though it carried weight she was still learning to bear. "That's the greatest compliment you could give me, Dr. Mitchell. I hope to honor her legacy in my own way." The conversation was overheard by several members of Catherine's entourage, and word began to spread quietly through the hospital staff. The resemblance wasn't just physical, though the choker certainly enhanced that, but something deeper in Catherine's approach and energy that day seemed to channel Diana's spirit. As they moved through the cancer ward, Catherine spent extra time with teenagers who were fighting difficult battles. One 16-year-old patient, Marcus, was particularly excited to meet her. He had been following the royal family closely during his treatment, finding inspiration in their charitable work. "Your Royal Highness, that necklace is incredible. My mum showed me pictures of Princess Diana wearing it," Marcus said with the directness that only teenagers possess. Catherine touched the choker instinctively. "Your mother has good taste in royal history. Princess Diana wore this to many special events. She believed that beautiful things should bring joy to others, not just sit in safes." The exchange was meaningful, but neither Catherine nor Marcus knew that this conversation was being quietly observed by a palace staff member who would later relay every detail to senior officials. The way Catherine spoke about Diana, the natural ease with which she wore the jewelry, and the emotional impact on everyone present was creating ripples that would soon reach the highest levels of the royal household. Meanwhile, at Buckingham Palace, King Charles was in the middle of a tense meeting with his senior advisors about upcoming state visits. The discussion was interrupted when his private secretary, Sir Clive Alderton, knocked and entered with an urgent expression. "Your Majesty, forgive the interruption, but I thought you should know that the Princess of Wales's hospital visit is generating significant media attention. The choice of jewelry appears to be creating quite a stir." Charles looked up from the documents spread across his desk. "What kind of stir, Clive?" "Well, sir, the photographers are calling it Diana's return, and the hospital staff are saying the resemblance is remarkable. Social media is already buzzing with comparisons." Sir Clive hesitated before continuing. "There are also reports that several staff members were moved to tears during the visit." The room fell silent. Charles's advisors exchanged glances, understanding the delicate nature of anything involving Diana's memory. The king himself remained quiet for a long moment, processing this information. "Has Catherine been made aware of the reaction?" Charles asked finally. "Not yet, Your Majesty. She's still engaged with her official duties. Her next appointment is with the children's charity representatives, followed by preparation for tonight's reception." Charles nodded slowly. "Thank you, Clive. Please keep me informed of any developments." As the meeting resumed, Charles found it difficult to concentrate on state visit protocols. His mind kept drifting to Catherine and the courage it must have taken to wear Diana's most recognizable piece of jewelry on such a public occasion. He had always admired Catherine's thoughtful approach to royal duties, but this decision showed a boldness that reminded him of Diana herself. The irony wasn't lost on him that Catherine was creating Diana-like moments while wearing Diana's actual jewelry. It was as if the past and present were converging in ways that no one could have predicted or planned. Back at the hospital, Catherine's visit was concluding with a meeting with the hospital's board of directors and major donors. The conference room was filled with influential people who supported the hospital's work, and Catherine's presence was helping to raise awareness for several critical funding needs. "Your Royal Highness, your visit today has been extraordinary," said Mrs. Elizabeth Hartwell, the hospital's chairman of the board. "The children haven't stopped talking about meeting you, and several have asked if you're related to Princess Diana because you sparkle just like her." Catherine laughed softly at the innocent observation. Children have such honest perspectives. "I'm honored by any comparison to Princess Diana, though I hope to make my own unique contribution to causes like this one." The comment was noted by everyone present, and several board members later remarked to each other about Catherine's grace under what could have been an awkward moment. Her ability to acknowledge Diana's legacy while maintaining her own identity was becoming increasingly evident throughout the day. As Catherine prepared to leave the hospital, word had already spread among the staff about the remarkable visit. Nurses, doctors, and administrative workers lined the corridors to see her off, many commenting on the beautiful jewelry and its historical significance. One elderly volunteer, Mrs. Agnes Thompson, who had worked at the hospital for 40 years, approached Catherine near the exit. "Your Royal Highness, I met Princess Diana several times during her visits here. Today, watching you with the children, I felt like I was seeing her again. That necklace suits you perfectly." Catherine was deeply moved by the comment. "Thank you so much, Mrs. Thompson. That means more to me than you know." The exchange was witnessed by Catherine's lady-in-waiting, Margaret, who later noted that it was one of the few times she had seen Catherine become visibly emotional during a public engagement. The weight of wearing Diana's jewelry was clearly having a profound impact, not just on observers but on Catherine herself. As Catherine's car pulled away from the hospital, she sat quietly in the back seat, processing the day's events. The response to Diana's choker had been more intense than she had expected. Every person she met seemed to have a memory or connection to Diana that the jewelry had triggered. Her phone buzzed with a text from William. "Heard your hospital visit went beautifully. Dad mentioned you're wearing Mom's choker today. Love you." Catherine smiled at the message, appreciating William's support. He understood better than anyone the complex emotions involved in wearing his mother's jewelry. His approval meant everything to her in moments like these. The car made its way through London traffic toward Catherine's next engagement with charity representatives. This meeting would be more formal, involving strategic discussions about upcoming initiatives and funding priorities. Catherine used the travel time to review her notes and prepare for the different tone this meeting would require. However, news of the morning's hospital visit was already spreading through royal circles. Palace staff members were quietly discussing the extraordinary response Catherine had received, and several had begun reaching out to contacts in other royal households to share what they had witnessed. By mid-afternoon, the story had reached Queen Camilla's office at Clarence House. Her private secretary mentioned the developing situation during a routine briefing about the day's events across the royal family. "The Princess of Wales's choice of jewelry today appears to be generating significant public interest, Your Majesty," the secretary noted diplomatically. Camilla, who had always maintained a respectful relationship with Diana's memory, understood immediately the potential implications. "I see. And how is she handling the attention?" "By all accounts, with remarkable grace, Your Majesty. The feedback from her engagements has been overwhelmingly positive." Camilla nodded thoughtfully. She had often admired Catherine's ability to navigate the complex dynamics of royal life, particularly when it came to Diana's continuing influence. Today's events would require careful handling by everyone involved. As the afternoon progressed, Catherine completed her meeting with charity representatives successfully. The discussion had focused on expanding programs for disadvantaged children, a cause that both she and Diana had championed in their own ways. The choice to wear Diana's jewelry to these particular engagements seemed increasingly meaningful as the day unfolded. Meanwhile, preparations for the evening reception were intensifying at Buckingham Palace. The guest list included international diplomats, business leaders, and prominent cultural figures. It would be a formal affair where both Catherine and Charles would be expected to mingle extensively with guests. Neither of them knew that their first interaction of the evening, when Charles would see Catherine wearing Diana's choker in person, would create a moment so emotionally charged that palace staff would remember it for years to come. The stage was being set for an encounter that would surprise everyone present and reveal depths of feeling that had remained hidden for decades. The late afternoon sun was casting long shadows across the palace grounds as Catherine returned to Kensington Palace to prepare for the evening reception. The day's events had been emotionally intense, and she needed time to process everything that had happened before facing another formal engagement. Margaret was waiting with updates about the evening's arrangements when Catherine arrived. "Your Royal Highness, the reception begins at 7. I've laid out the navy evening gown as planned, and..." Margaret paused, glancing at the sapphire choker that Catherine still wore. "You're wondering if I should change the jewelry for tonight," Catherine said, reading her aide's hesitation perfectly. "Well, ma'am, the choker is certainly stunning, but, given the response it's generated today, perhaps something more subdued might be appropriate for a diplomatic reception." Catherine moved to her dressing room mirror and looked at her reflection. The choker had been part of her all day, and removing it now felt like breaking a connection she wasn't ready to sever. The weight of the sapphires against her neck had become comforting, a tangible link to Diana's memory and mission. "I think Diana would have wanted her jewelry to be seen and appreciated, not hidden away when things get formal," Catherine said thoughtfully. "Tonight feels like the right time to continue honoring her memory." Margaret nodded, understanding that Catherine had made her decision with careful consideration. "Very well, ma'am. The navy gown will complement the sapphires beautifully." As Catherine prepared for the evening, news of her day's appearances was spreading through media channels faster than palace communications could manage. Social media platforms were filled with images from the hospital visit, particularly the touching moment with the young patient who had reached out to touch the choker. The hashtag Diana Legacy was trending, with thousands of people sharing memories of Diana and praising Catherine's tribute. Television news programs were already preparing special segments about the significance of Diana's jewelry and Catherine's choice to wear it on this particular anniversary. Royal commentators were being interviewed about the deeper meaning behind such decisions and their impact on public perception of the monarchy. At Buckingham Palace, King Charles was in his private study reviewing final preparations for the evening's reception when Sir Clive entered with another update. "Your Majesty, the situation regarding the Princess of Wales has developed throughout the afternoon. The public response has been extraordinary, and international media outlets are now picking up the story." Charles set down his papers and gave Sir Clive his full attention. "What kind of response are we seeing?" "Overwhelmingly positive, sir. The public seems to view it as a beautiful tribute to Princess Diana, particularly given that today marks her death anniversary. However, there are some concerns about managing expectations for future appearances." Charles understood the implication immediately. Once Catherine had worn Diana's most iconic piece so publicly and successfully, there would be pressure for similar gestures in the future. The royal family had always had to balance honoring Diana's memory with moving forward as an institution. "Has anyone spoken to Catherine about the reaction?" Charles asked. "I believe Prince William has been in contact, Your Majesty. But she's been engaged with official duties most of the day." Charles nodded, then made a decision that surprised his private secretary. "Please arrange for me to have a brief private word with the Princess of Wales when she arrives this evening, before the reception begins." Sir Clive raised an eyebrow slightly. Such spontaneous meetings were unusual in the carefully choreographed world of royal events. "Of course, Your Majesty. I'll coordinate with her office." Meanwhile, at Clarence House, Queen Camilla was also monitoring the developing story. Her staff had briefed her on the day's events, and she understood the delicate position that Catherine's choice had created for the entire family. As someone who had navigated the complexities of Diana's continuing influence for many years, Camilla recognized the courage Catherine had shown. "How is she handling all the attention?" Camilla asked her private secretary during their evening briefing. "By all accounts, with remarkable composure, Your Majesty. Several people who interacted with her today have commented on her grace under what must be considerable pressure." Camilla smiled slightly. She had always respected Catherine's ability to handle difficult situations with dignity. "Please pass along my compliments on a job well done today." Back at Kensington Palace, Catherine was putting the finishing touches on her evening appearance. The navy gown was elegant and diplomatic appropriate, while the sapphire choker added exactly the right touch of royal glamour. Her hair was styled in an updo that showcased the necklace perfectly, and her makeup was subtle but polished. William arrived just as Catherine was completing her preparations. As Diana's son, his opinion about wearing his mother's jewelry carried special weight, and Catherine was eager to hear his thoughts about how the day had unfolded. "You look absolutely stunning," William said, embracing his wife carefully to avoid disturbing her elegant appearance. "And, from everything I've heard, today was remarkable." "It felt right," Catherine said simply. "Every moment of wearing this piece has felt like honoring her memory in the way she would have wanted." William studied his wife's reflection in the mirror. "You know, there were moments today when people said you reminded them so much of Mom that it brought them to tears." Catherine turned to face him directly. "How do you feel about that?" "I never want to overshadow her memory or make it seem like I'm trying to replace her." "Catherine, you could never replace Mom, and you're not trying to. But you're carrying forward her spirit in the most beautiful way. She would be so proud of how you've honored her today." The conversation was interrupted by a call from Catherine's protection officer announcing that the car was ready for departure to Buckingham Palace. As they made their way to the vehicle, William squeezed Catherine's hand reassuringly. "Whatever happens tonight, remember that you've already made today something special. Mum's jewelry was meant to be worn by someone who would use it to do good in the world." The drive to Buckingham Palace gave Catherine time to mentally prepare for what she knew would be an intense evening. The guest list included people who had known Diana personally, diplomats who understood the significance of royal symbolism, and media representatives who would analyze every gesture and expression. As their car approached the palace, Catherine could see the familiar setup of photographers and media crews positioned to capture arrivals. The sight of the sapphire choker would undoubtedly create another surge of attention, but Catherine felt ready to handle whatever came next. "Nervous?" William asked, noticing Catherine's quiet contemplation. "Not nervous exactly," Catherine replied thoughtfully. "More like, aware of the responsibility. This necklace represents so much more than just beautiful jewelry." The car pulled into the palace courtyard, and Catherine took a deep breath as she prepared to step out into the evening air. She had no idea that King Charles was waiting inside with a request for a private conversation that would add yet another layer of significance to this already extraordinary day. Palace staff members were positioning themselves throughout the building, all aware that tonight's reception would be closely watched for any indication of how the royal family was responding to Catherine's bold choice. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, though most guests would have no idea why. As Catherine and William made their way through the palace corridors toward the reception area, word spread quickly among staff that the Princess of Wales was indeed still wearing Diana's sapphire choker. Whispers followed their progress, with longtime employees commenting on how the piece seemed to transform Catherine's entire presence. "She carries herself differently when she wears Diana's jewelry," observed Mrs. Patricia Holbrook, who had served in the palace for over 20 years. "It's like she's channeling something deeper." The observation was shared by many who had worked with both Diana and Catherine over the years. There was something about Diana's jewelry that seemed to bring out qualities in Catherine that resonated with Diana's own approach to royal duties. Sir Clive intercepted Catherine and William as they approached the reception area. "Your Royal Highness, His Majesty would like a brief word before the reception begins, if that's convenient." Catherine and William exchanged glances, both understanding that such last-minute requests from the king usually indicated something significant was happening. Catherine nodded graciously. "Of course. William, perhaps you could check on the guest arrangements while I speak with your father?" As Catherine was escorted toward King Charles's private reception room, she wondered what he might want to discuss. The day had been full of unexpected moments, and she sensed that the evening was about to bring another surprise that no one had anticipated. The stage was set for a conversation between Charles and Catherine that would reveal emotions and create a moment of understanding that would surprise everyone who witnessed it, marking this day as truly extraordinary in the history of the royal family. The private reception room was elegantly lit with soft evening light filtering through tall windows when Catherine entered to find King Charles standing near the fireplace, his hands clasped behind his back in his characteristic pose. The room felt intimate compared to the grand spaces where formal receptions were held, and Catherine immediately sensed that this conversation would be more personal than official. "Your Majesty," Catherine said with a respectful curtsy, though her relationship with Charles had grown warm and familial over the years. Charles turned to face her, and, for a moment, he simply stood silent, taking in the sight of Catherine wearing Diana's sapphire choker. The impact was more powerful than he had expected. The jewelry didn't just look beautiful on Catherine, it seemed to carry with it an essence of Diana herself that filled the room with memories. "Catherine," Charles said softly, his voice carrying emotions that surprised them both. "You look absolutely radiant this evening." "Thank you, Your Majesty. I hope my choice of jewelry today has been appropriate for the occasions." Charles walked closer, his eyes focused on the choker that had been such an important part of Diana's royal wardrobe. "That piece, it brings back so many memories. Diana wore it to our 10th wedding anniversary celebration, to Harry's christening reception, to dozens of state functions." Catherine remained still, sensing that Charles needed to share these memories without interruption. The weight of the necklace around her neck felt heavier as she listened to the personal history it carried. "She always said that beautiful things should serve a purpose," Charles continued, his voice growing softer. "That jewelry shouldn't sit in vaults when it could bring joy to people and draw attention to important causes." "That's exactly how I felt when I chose to wear it today," Catherine said gently. "Every moment has felt like honoring her mission to help others." Charles nodded slowly, then did something that shocked Catherine completely. He reached out and gently touched the central sapphire of the choker, his fingers trembling slightly. "Diana bought this with her own money, he said, his voice thick with emotion. "It wasn't part of the crown collection originally. She saw it at a jewelry exhibition for charity and fell in love with it. She said the sapphires reminded her of the hope in children's eyes." Catherine felt tears welling up in her own eyes as she listened to this intimate detail about Diana's purchase. The connection between the necklace and children's charity work made her choice to wear it to the hospital even more meaningful than she had realized. "I had no idea," Catherine whispered. "No wonder it felt so right to wear it with the children today." Charles's hand was still touching the necklace, and Catherine could see the mix of pain and fondness in his expression as memories flooded back. "Catherine, I want you to know something. Seeing you wear Diana's jewelry, watching how you honor her memory while making your own unique contribution, it brings me more comfort than you could possibly imagine." The admission was so unexpected and heartfelt that Catherine felt her composure wavering. In all their years of family relationships, Charles had never been so openly emotional with her. "Your Majesty, that means everything to me," she managed to say. "I never want to overstep or make anyone uncomfortable." "Uncomfortable?" Charles looked surprised. "Catherine, you've brought Diana's jewelry back to life in the most beautiful way. You wear it with dignity, purpose, and love. Diana would be so proud to see her pieces serving the causes she cared about through your work." Just then, the door to the reception room opened quietly, and Sir Clive appeared with an urgent expression. "Your Majesty, forgive the interruption, but there's been a development regarding tonight's reception that requires your immediate attention." Charles and Catherine turned toward the private secretary, both curious about what could be urgent enough to interrupt their private conversation. "What kind of development, Sir Clive?" Charles asked, his hand finally moving away from Catherine's necklace. "Well, sir, word has spread among tonight's guests about the Princess of Wales wearing Princess Diana's choker. Several guests who knew Princess Diana personally have specifically requested opportunities to speak with Her Royal Highness about their memories of the late princess." Catherine and Charles exchanged glances, both understanding immediately that the evening had taken on a significance neither had anticipated. "How many guests are we talking about?" Catherine asked. "Approximately 15 to 20, Your Royal Highness. They include former ambassadors who worked with Princess Diana on international causes, charity leaders she supported, and several personal friends who haven't spoken publicly about their relationships with her." Charles was quiet for a moment, processing this development. A reception that had been planned as a standard diplomatic event was transforming into something much more meaningful and, potentially emotional. "Catherine," Charles said, turning to face her fully, "are you prepared for conversations that might be quite emotional? These people will want to share very personal memories with you." Catherine straightened her shoulders, feeling the weight of both the necklace and the responsibility it represented. "Yes, Your Majesty. If wearing Diana's jewelry opens doors for people to share their memories and honor her work, then that's exactly what should happen." Charles smiled, the expression transforming his entire face. "That response is exactly why Diana's jewelry belongs with you. You understand that it's not just about looking beautiful, it's about serving a greater purpose." Sir Clive cleared his throat gently. "There's one more thing, Your Majesty. The media presence has increased significantly this evening. Word of the Princess of Wales's tribute to Princess Diana has spread internationally, and several major outlets are requesting statements or interviews about the significance of tonight's events." "Absolutely not," Catherine said immediately. "This isn't about creating media moments. It's about honoring Diana's memory and supporting the causes she loved." Charles nodded approvingly. "Quite right. Sir Clive, please inform the media that tonight is about charitable work and international relations, not commentary on personal tributes." As they prepared to leave the private room and join the reception, Charles made one more unexpected gesture. He placed his hand on Catherine's arm and spoke in a voice so low that only she could hear. "Catherine, Diana had a gift for making everyone she met feel like the most important person in the world. Tonight, I've watched you develop that same gift. The necklace suits you perfectly, but, more importantly, you suit it." The compliment was so personal and heartfelt that Catherine felt overwhelmed. "Thank you, Your Majesty. That's the greatest honor you could give me." As they walked toward the reception area, palace staff members who had witnessed parts of their conversation were quietly amazed by what they had seen. The sight of King Charles touching Diana's necklace while Catherine wore it, the emotional depth of their discussion, and the obvious affection and respect between them created a moment that would be remembered by everyone present. "I've never seen His Majesty speak so personally about Princess Diana," one long-serving staff member whispered to another as they watched Charles and Catherine make their way down the corridor. "And I've never seen the Princess of Wales look more regal," came the reply. "That necklace has transformed this entire evening." As they approached the reception area, they could hear the buzz of conversation from guests who were clearly excited about the evening's unexpected significance. Neither Charles nor Catherine could have imagined when the day began that a simple choice of jewelry would create such profound moments of connection and understanding. The reception doors opened to reveal a room full of distinguished guests, many of whom looked toward Catherine with expressions of anticipation and emotion. The evening that was supposed to be about diplomatic relations was about to become a celebration of Diana's enduring legacy and Catherine's role in preserving it. Charles offered Catherine his arm as they prepared to enter the reception together, a gesture that would be photographed and remembered as a symbol of the royal family's unity in honoring Diana's memory while moving forward together. The moment Catherine and King Charles entered the reception area together, the atmosphere in the room shifted dramatically. Conversations paused as guests turned to look at them, many focusing immediately on the stunning sapphire choker that caught the chandelier light brilliantly. The sight of Catherine wearing Diana's jewelry while accompanied by Charles created a powerful image that no one in attendance would ever forget. Lady Margaret Thornton, a longtime friend of Diana's who had worked with her on several charity projects, was among the first to approach Catherine. Her eyes immediately went to the familiar necklace, and her expression showed a mix of surprise and deep emotion. "Your Royal Highness," Lady Margaret said, her voice slightly unsteady, "seeing that beautiful piece again brings back such wonderful memories. Diana wore it to my daughter's charity gala 15 years ago. She said the sapphires reminded her of the strength she saw in the young people we were supporting." Catherine felt the familiar tingle of connection that had been occurring all day whenever someone shared a Diana memory related to the choker. "Please tell me more about that evening. I'd love to hear about Diana's work with young people. As Lady Margaret began sharing her memories, other guests gradually moved closer, drawn by the conversation and the significance of what they were witnessing. Each person seemed to have a personal story connected to Diana and that particular piece of jewelry. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, who had worked with Diana on international children's aid programs, joined the growing circle around Catherine. Princess Diana wore the choker to a state dinner in Madrid where we discussed expanding education programs for disadvantaged children. She was so passionate about the project that she pledged her personal support on the spot. Catherine listened intently to each story, feeling the weight of the necklace increase with every memory shared. It wasn't just jewelry she was wearing, it was a tangible connection to Diana's lifework and the countless lives she had touched. King Charles moved through the reception, engaging with other guests while keeping one eye on the remarkable scene unfolding around Catherine. He watched with growing amazement as person after person approached his daughter-in-law to share intimate memories of Diana that the public had never heard. Lord Pemberton, who had served as chairman of one of Diana's favorite children's charities, spoke with particular emotion. "Your Royal Highness, Diana used to say that she hoped someone would continue her work with the same dedication she brought to it. Seeing you wearing her jewelry while carrying forward her mission, it's exactly what she would have wanted." The comment drew murmurs of agreement from the surrounding guests, many of whom nodded emphatically. Catherine felt overwhelmed by the responsibility these words represented, but also honored to be seen as worthy of continuing Diana's legacy. "Diana's work speaks for itself," Catherine replied graciously. "I'm simply trying to follow the path she carved with such courage and compassion." Dr. James Mitchell, a pediatric surgeon who had worked with Diana on hospital reforms, shared perhaps the most touching memory of the evening. "Princess Diana visited our hospital wearing that exact necklace when my own daughter was a patient there. She spent 20 minutes talking to my little girl about the magic in the sapphires. My daughter recovered beautifully, and she still talks about meeting the princess with the magical necklace." Catherine's eyes filled with tears at this story. "Your daughter sounds wonderful. Diana had such a gift for making children feel special during difficult times." "She did indeed," Dr. Mitchell agreed. "And, if I may say so, Your Royal Highness, watching you with children today at our hospital showed that same gift. The staff hasn't stopped talking about your visit." Meanwhile, William had been circulating through the reception, observing the remarkable response to his wife's tribute to his mother. He approached Queen Camilla, who had arrived during the middle of these emotional exchanges. "This is quite extraordinary," Camilla said quietly to William. "I don't think anyone anticipated the depth of feeling that Catherine's choice would inspire." William nodded, watching his wife continue to listen to story after story about Diana. "She had no idea when she put on that necklace this morning that it would create moments like these. Your mother would be very proud," Camilla said simply, the comment carrying special weight coming from someone who had worked so hard to find her own place within Diana's continuing influence on the royal family. As the evening progressed, Catherine found herself at the center of what had essentially become an impromptu memorial celebration of Diana's life and work. Guests shared stories about Diana's humor, her dedication to causes, her ability to connect with people from all walks of life, and, always, her impeccable style that made every piece of jewelry she wore memorable. Mrs. Sarah Hamilton, who had organized several of Diana's charity galas, added another layer to the choker's history. "Diana told me once that she chose that particular necklace for important events because the sapphires gave her confidence. She said they reminded her of the ocean's depth and power." Catherine touched the central stone thoughtfully. "I felt that same sense of strength when I put it on this morning. It's as if Diana's confidence is somehow still present in the piece." The conversation was overheard by several members of the diplomatic corps, who were witnessing a side of royal life they had never experienced before. The formal reception had transformed into something much more personal and meaningful than anyone had expected. King Charles eventually made his way back to the group surrounding Catherine, and what happened next surprised everyone in attendance. He gently placed his hand on Catherine's shoulder and addressed the gathering. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll forgive a father-in-law's pride, but I must say something. Watching Catherine honor Diana's memory today, seeing how she's worn my late wife's jewelry not as a costume but as a continuation of service to others. Diana herself could not have chosen a better person to carry forward her legacy. The room fell completely silent at this unexpected and deeply personal statement. Many guests had tears in their eyes, moved by the king's obvious emotion and the significance of his words. Catherine was visibly touched by Charles's public endorsement of her tribute to Diana. "Your Majesty, wearing Diana's jewelry today has been one of the greatest honors of my life. Every story shared tonight has shown me even more clearly what an extraordinary woman she was." As the formal reception began to wind down, Catherine found herself surrounded by people requesting final moments to share one more memory or to simply thank her for bringing Diana's spirit back into their lives for one evening. The last conversation of the night was perhaps the most meaningful. An elderly gentleman who had remained quiet throughout the evening finally approached Catherine as other guests were beginning to leave. "Your Royal Highness, I'm Thomas Hartwell. I was Diana's driver for several years, and I see that you're wearing the sapphire choker that she always called her courage necklace." Catherine's attention was immediately captured by this detail she hadn't heard before. "Her courage necklace?" "Yes, ma'am. She told me that wearing it gave her the strength to face difficult situations. She wore it to hospital visits with very sick children, to meetings about landmine removal, to events where she knew she'd be discussing painful subjects. She said the weight of it reminded her that she was strong enough to help others." Catherine felt a chill run through her as she realized that her instinct to wear the necklace on this emotionally challenging anniversary had been more appropriate than she could have known. "Mr. Hartwell, thank you for sharing that with me. It means more than you know." As the evening finally came to an end and guests began to depart, Catherine and Charles found themselves alone in the reception area for a few moments. Both were emotionally drained but also exhilarated by the unexpected direction the evening had taken. "Well," Charles said with a tired but satisfied smile, "I don't think either of us anticipated that wearing Diana's necklace would create such an extraordinary evening." Catherine touched the choker one final time before preparing to leave. "It's been the most meaningful day I've experienced as a member of this family. Diana's jewelry isn't just beautiful, it's a bridge to her life and work that I never fully understood before today." As they prepared to leave the reception area, both Catherine and Charles knew that this day would be remembered as a turning point in how Diana's memory was honored within the royal family. The courage Catherine had shown in wearing the necklace, combined with the emotional response it had generated, had created new understanding and brought healing to old wounds. The palace staff members who had witnessed the day's events would talk for years about the transformation they had seen, not just in how people responded to Catherine, but in how the entire royal family had come together to honor Diana's memory while embracing the future. As Catherine finally returned home to Kensington Palace, she carefully removed Diana's sapphire choker, knowing that she had worn it not just as jewelry, but as a symbol of courage, compassion, and continuity that would inspire her royal duties for years to come.